Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're looking at a couple of really potentially game-changing developments in the crypto space.
Yeah, definitely.
First, this fascinating report about moving Bitcoin between blockchains, but without the usual bridges.
A big one for interoperability.
And then we'll switch over to the US, where there's a new draft crypto framework trying to bring some clarity.
Right. Regulation is always a hot topic. Both
Right.
could be pretty significant.
Exactly. So for you trying to get the important updates quickly, this is what we're diving into today. Let's unpack them.
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, this bridgeless Bitcoin transfer. Bitcoin to Cardano, apparently. Now, normally you'd use a bridge, right? Like a custodian holds your BTC, gives you a wrapped token.
Exactly. You lock up the real BTC, get an IOU basically on the other chain.
But this report says they moved a whole Bitcoin without that step. That sounds different. Fundamentally different.
It could be. The core idea comes from BitcoinOS. They're talking about wrapping native BTC into something called xBTC.
xBTC. Right.
And they do this using BitSnark zero-knowledge proofs.
Zero-knowledge proofs. Okay, break that down a bit. Sounds complex.
Well, think of it like this. You can prove you have the key to a box without actually showing the key itself.
Ah, okay. So BitcoinOS can prove this xBTC is backed by real Bitcoin.
Precisely. And that it can be, let's say, programmed without revealing all the messy details.
Gotcha.
So this xBTC moves over, say, to Cardano, and then crucially, it can be unwrapped back to the original Bitcoin. No middleman holding it.
No custodian.
No custodian. That's the potential breakthrough.
Yeah.
Could cut down risks, hacks on bridges, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And speed things up, maybe.
So the big deal isn't just moving it, it's how they moved it, changing how Bitcoin talks to other chains.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. Opening up DeFi without needing those traditional, sometimes risky bridges.
Okay, so how did this specific transfer work? What were the steps involved?
Right, so the report says, first, the Bitcoin was wrapped into xBTC on the Bitcoin chain itself.
On Bitcoin, okay.
Then, that xBTC got sent over to a Cardano wallet, specifically one belonging to Sundial Protocol.
Sundial Protocol. They're involved.
Yeah, they're described as a kind of hybrid Bitcoin-Cardano layer 2.
Layer 2, like something built on top to make things faster or add features.
Exactly, helping process things, enabling more complex stuff.
Okay, so xBTC goes to Sundial. Then what?
Then it moved from Sundial's wallet to one linked with Handle.
Handle, Cardano's identity platform.
That's the one. And then here's the round trip part. The xBTC was sent back to the Bitcoin blockchain.
Back to Bitcoin.
And unwrapped, turned back into the original native BTC. Completing that whole cycle is, well, that's the proof of concept they're highlighting.
Quite the journey. So BitcoinOS, Sundial, Handle, a group effort. What are they saying? What's the headline from them?
Well, Idan Yago from BitcoinOS, he framed it as showing Bitcoin can get smart contract abilities.
Smart contracts on Bitcoin. Well, sort of via this method.
Kind of, yeah. While staying, and this is key, trustlessly anchored to Bitcoin. So using Bitcoin security.
Okay, that's interesting.
And he even suggested this could, and I quote, turn Cardano into a seamless DeFi layer for Bitcoin.
Whoa, okay. That is a big statement. Cardano as Bitcoin's DeFi playground.
Potentially. And he hinted it could work for other similar chains too, these UTXO-based ones. So unlocking Bitcoin for DeFi is the main pitch.
Makes sense. What about the Sundial and Handle folks? What were their takes?
Sheldon Hunt, Sundial's founder, he called it a turning point for decentralized interoperability, looking beyond just these two chains.
Right, the bigger picture.
And Jonah Peralta from Handle, he focused on Bitcoin's utility, saying this could unlock smart contracts, scalability, all while keeping Bitcoin security intact.
So everyone involved seems pretty excited about making Bitcoin more versatile.
That's the vibe, yeah. A major step forward, they believe.
Okay, so let's connect this back. For someone holding Bitcoin, why should they care? What's the direct benefit here?
The main thing is potentially being able to use your Bitcoin in DeFi lending, trading, all that stuff on other chains. Without handing it over to a bridge operator you have to trust.
Right, avoiding that bridge risk we talked about.
Exactly. Bridges can be targets. This approach, if it works reliably, bypasses that risk. Plus, it might mean Bitcoin isn't just sitting there. It can be used more actively across different ecosystems without being fragmented.
Like Bitcoin finally gets a passport, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. It can travel and do more things.
And those zero-knowledge proofs? Just one more time, why are they the magic ingredient here?
Right. Back to the safe analogy. They let BitcoinOS embed instructions, like programmable logic, into Bitcoin transactions.
Instructions like?
Like, if this happens on Cardano, then release this Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But crucially, the Bitcoin network doesn't need to see or understand the details of that if this happens part.
So it adds logic without changing Bitcoin's core rules.
Exactly. It allows these layer 2 solutions to interact across chains while still inheriting the base security of Bitcoin. It's about extending capabilities, not fundamentally altering Bitcoin itself.
Okay, I think I've got a much better handle on that now. It's definitely something to watch.
For sure.
Right, let's pivot then. Topic number 2, the U.S. crypto regulation draft. What's the story here?
Okay, so the House Committee on Financial Services released a draft bill, a proposal for a new market structure for digital assets in the U.S.
A new set of rules? And you mentioned bipartisan support.
Yes, that's notable. Chairman French Hill, Agriculture Chair G.T. Thompson, others from both parties are backing this initial draft.
Which, in today's world, suggests it might actually have legs, potentially.
It increases the odds, certainly. The industry has been asking for clarity for ages, so any serious bipartisan effort gets attention.
Makes sense. What are the stated goals? What are they trying to achieve with this?
They're saying it's about providing that regulatory clarity, obviously, also investor protection, and keeping the U.S. competitive in financial innovation. Pretty standard goals for this kind of legislation.
Creating a clear playing field, basically.
That seems to be the aim.
So what's in the draft that's got people talking? Any specific points causing a buzz?
Yeah, a few things. Matthew Sigel from VanEck had a reaction online, calling it a major upgrade from a previous attempt, FIT 21.
Okay, an upgrade how? What did he highlight?
Well, one point was potentially getting rid of income or wealth thresholds for retail investors in some cases.
Oh, so opening things up beyond just accredited investors.
That seems to be a possibility explored in the draft, yeah. Making certain investments more accessible to everyday folks. It also touches on removing some suitability requirements in specific contexts.
Interesting. Potentially broader access. What else stood out?
He also mentioned a decentralization test.
A test for decentralization. How would that work?
It's trying to define, when a crypto project becomes decentralized enough that maybe different rules should apply.
Right.
It looks at things like, does any one group own more than 10% while it's still considered centralized? Is there unilateral control?
So checking if power is actually distributed.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it suggests non-custodial DeFi protocols where the platform doesn't hold your funds or make decisions for you might get an exemption under this test.
Okay, that could be significant for DeFi.
Definitely. The draft also proposes a definition for stablecoins, importantly without automatically calling them securities, and it suggests an optional registration path where the SEC and CFTC would work together on rules.
SEC and CFTC trying to sort out who regulates what.
Exactly. That division of responsibility is a huge piece of the puzzle they're trying to solve.
It sounds like they're really trying to get into the weeds and create specific categories.
It seems that way, yes. More nuanced than we've seen in some previous discussions.
Now, we also saw comments from Justin Slaughter at Paradigm. What was his take? Similar view.
He saw it as more of an incremental, albeit meaningful, rewrite of that earlier FIT 21 bill. So building on past work, refining it.
Incremental, okay. What changes did he focus on?
He pointed out changes to how regulatory oversight would work and tweaks to that path for a project being recognized as decentralized.
That decentralization point again.
Yeah, his view is that this bill would likely make the CFTC the main crypto regulator eventually.
The CFTC, not the SEC.
Yeah, it's his interpretation. But he notes the SEC would still have jurisdiction until a project meets that decentralization threshold. So it's not a clean break immediately.
Okay, so clarity is the goal, but the specifics of who's in charge when and what counts as decentralized still seem like areas with different interpretations.
Absolutely. It's complex. There's positive noise about finally getting some framework, but the details and the balance of power between the SEC and CFTC are definitely still being debated and analyzed.
So this draft, it's a big step, but just the start of a potentially long process.
Exactly. Gives a concrete sense of direction, but expect lots of discussion, probably changes, before anything becomes law. It tackles key issues, though. Who can invest, how things are classified, who's the ref.
Okay, that really helps clarify where things stand on the regulatory front in the U.S. So wrapping up, we've looked at this potentially major tech advance with BitcoinOS, making Bitcoin more portable.
Yeah, breaking down barriers between chains, potentially.
And then the significant legislative effort in the U.S. to finally put some clear rules around crypto.
Trying to bring structure and maybe encourage more mainstream adoption within a defined space.
Both feel like they could really shape the next few years for crypto and DeFi.
They really could. Technology pushing boundaries and regulation trying to catch up and provide guardrails.
So here's something for you, our listener, to chew on. How do you think these two things, the tech, making Bitcoin more fluid across chains, and these potential new U.S. regulations might actually interact?
Good question.
Will easier Bitcoin movement boost DeFi just as regulations try to define it? Or could the regulations somehow influence how that cross-chain tech gets adopted?
Yeah, how will accessibility, security, and innovation balance out when these forces meet?
It's a dynamic picture, definitely two developments worth keeping a very close eye on going forward.